we have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck. Hey, everybody. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and you are on the lifeboat. Hold on one moment whilst I shut this phone down so that we don't have to listen to it make cool sounds, which it will do, I promise you, if I don't shut this thing down. Then I'm going to go over here, and if I'm smart, we'll get
Sorry,
the
guys.
volume down.
I forgot to.
No. This is on me.
No. I had the cow.
Look
cow.
at that.
Yeah.
Look at that. You know what? It's not a bad way to start a show because you could always use a little bit more cowbell. People, you know, it is what it is. But if I do if I do a show and Mark makes a thumbnail and we talk about something ugly, we're liable to get 400 views. And if we talk about something positive, we get 180. It's kind of a sad thing. And normally, you know, truthfully, we're not in it for views, but it is just kind of a statement, you know. But today I'm here for more good news, and I don't care how many views we get because there is some good news. And you know what? There's not enough of it. There really is just not enough good news. So we're happy with this one. You probably saw the thumbnail. And if you've ever played any poker, a deuce 7 is an ugly hand. And my bobble-headed partner was smart enough to make it offsuit, which makes it about the worst starting hand that you can possibly get if you're playing a communal game of poker with 5 cards and 2 down, right? Texas Hold'em, any kind of a stud or anything where you've got 2 cards in the hole. And that's been the story for opiate abuse and opiate addiction for a very long time. I have quoted on here many times, and the quotes that we get, we take primarily from the CDC, but there are a lot of different places they come from. But for the longest time, if your drug of choice was opiates, they gave you about a 2% chance of getting clean if you were a woman. If you were a man, and a 1% chance of getting clean wrong way. God, I'm just not going to get this right. 2 if you're a guy, 1 if you're a girl, right? So really ugly odds, right? Really, really ugly odds. And, you know, yesterday we talked about the shooting star. And, you know, there are tens of thousands of stars out there for every shooting star. But the odds of you becoming one of those stars that stays in the sky were never really great. And because of the opiate crisis being what it is, there's been an awful lot more research being done. There's also been a lot more technology, and there's been a lot of things that are changing. Right now, there's a lot of different treatment options. There are injections that will just simply block the opiates in your body for a month, and people go in and get a once a month injection. There is obviously buprenorphine in all of its forms, Subutex, Suboxone. There are a lot of different medical assisted treatments out there, and there are a lot of things like the lifeboat. We're not alone. A lot of people are using technology as a way to bring people closer together, and people that may not want to stand up and be part of a live group where they share their deepest and darkest secrets and their innermost thoughts. I think a combination of all of these has really started to turn the tide slightly. And the newest statistics that came out, they're starting, you're going to hear them because they just are now starting to get released, but they're saying this as bad news, but I assure you it's good news. And what they're saying is that 85% of people who get into full-blown opiate addiction will never get clean. They just don't realize that is a massive step forward, right? They're quoting this as if to say, how awful. And yeah, it's a bad number, but it beats the hell out of 1 or 2%. So things are looking up. They really are. And I think that if we continue to look out for one another, if we continue to try and reach out and save somebody, that those numbers are going to get even better. There are a lot of people that watch the lifeboat that in the beginning may not be comfortable chiming in. And we've said this many times on the boat before. You don't have to share. You don't have to be somebody that is in the comments section and weighing in. And there are some people that really find some kind of peace in that, and there are some people that would rather just observe. And for that reason, I would never want to put an observer's name out there for the world to hear, especially if the observer didn't give me permission first. But I will say to a friend of the lifeboat in the Pennsylvania area of the US, I will say Semper Fi, and congratulations, 3 days sober. Gentleman that has been here as an observer for closing on 6 months, but has made the decision, the tough one, right? Made the final decision to start walking the walk. And 3 days is epic. I'm sorry. This gentleman said he's got about 8 years of drinking under his belt on a daily basis, and that it has affected family and relationships and things. But 3 days is a hell of a start. So, T, congratulations, my brother. We know that you're out there. We know that you're listening. We love you, man. We really do. That's so awesome. I'll tell you something. That email made my day. I didn't have a bad day, but that one really, really made my day. Yeah, right. I mean, that it really does. And I get one of the questions that we get asked a lot in emails, and often not from you guys. It's not from the people who seem to be on the boat. I think it's usually from casual observers, but people will say, how do you deal with all of the people that don't make it? That's just one of those questions that we get all the time. And I think this is one of the answers right there. I mean, truthfully, that's about the best way that I can describe it, is because when you get one of those emails, it makes up for a multitude of people that don't quite make it. And the other thing is, just because somebody hasn't made it yet doesn't mean that they haven't made it. If we use that as a barometer, then it took me 3.5 decades. This is what I do, and this is what Mark does. Neither of us were successful in our first attempt, right? We really, we both struggled with that process of getting clean. But yeah, we don't give up on anybody. And I think that that's probably the key to it. That's why go ahead. True story. Getting up, dusting yourself off. And I also got an email today from someone, that separate individual, who just said, I love what you and your partner are doing with the recovery channel. And if there's anything that I can do to help, you let me know. You know what that feels like? Honestly, people, you know what that feels like? That feels like success. So if we go positive and we get 60 views, but I get an email from somebody that says, I love what you're doing. Is there anything I can do to help? And I get another email from somebody that says, you know what, I've been observing for 6 months, and 3 days ago, I drew that line in the sand. I'll ride that high for days. I've said this before. That's better than any buzz that's out there. It really is. It's better than the plunger hitting the bottom of a syringe. It's better than, the coke hitting the back of your throat when you sniff it, or anything else. It's just real. And yeah. Sarah normally says, your channel has been my anchor lately. You know what? It's a beautiful thing to say, but make no mistake, this is your channel, and we're glad that it's your anchor, but it's definitely everybody's. It really is everybody's channel. The mountain of ugly statistics that we get nonstop. Truthfully, that's probably more difficult to deal with than the people who don't make it. The people who don't make it, I believe we'll see them again. It happens all the time. Somebody disappears and they come back a month later. They disappear and they come back 2 months later or 4 months later, or whatever the case may be. It's difficult to hear of the overdoses. It's difficult to hear of the people that don't have a chance to get up and dust themselves off. So when you hear something like 15%, and again, the pundits, the people who are announcing this, are announcing it like, this is the worst thing that ever happened. I don't call shows, people. I don't do things like that. But I actually picked up the horn and tried to get on the phone to say to them, are you kidding? Do you have any idea the massive step forward this is? We're starting to turn the tide, right? We're starting to make this something where everybody has a shot at getting sober. And I'll be honest, Mark and I, will be doing exactly what we're doing if it was 0.5% or 1/10 of 1%, because the effects of saving that one individual is worth all of the BS and all of the, the struggle and anything. It's there's no way to quantify what that feels like, and there's no way to quantify. I know we talk about it all the time, and you know what? Get used to it, because it is my favorite thing to talk about. But the concentric circles, how far the ripples of a sober individual go, is just absolutely amazing. It really is. We talk a lot about getting involved, and I use Steve, the seventh son, as sort of my shining example, because he's just a beast and has really gotten involved and reached out. But I'll tell you, there's a lot that you can do at home. There really is. I talked about these 2 incidents and how these kids, hadn't had a father in their life in 5 years. It doesn't mean that they hadn't spoken to him. I don't mean it was bad fathering. I mean, it was non-existent fathering. And when you get up to be in your 50s, 5 years doesn't sound like a long time. When you're 18, 5 years is the majority of your adult life, right? It's really the opportunity to be a dad, and the opportunity to I'm sorry. I'll get back to that because this is huge. Sarah normally said, I visited someone in level 4 max. To be honest, it's a hard place to plant a seed there. No question. No question. I can't think of a harder place to plant a seed. It really is a very difficult place, because if you look at what we use drugs for, right? We use drugs to escape realities that we're uncomfortable with. Let me assure you that a level 4 penitentiary is a reality that there is not much a person won't do to escape. And you can't go over the fence. You can't tunnel under it, but you do have the opportunity to drug yourself so that for, that 6 to 8 hour period of time, you might feel some kind of freedom. It's phony, and very oftentimes leads to death, because in there, as we've said so many times, I kid you not, people, this is the winding crown of a watch. It's not very large, but if you can see that right there, right?
Yep.
That little thing right there, That's about $1,000 worth of heroin in a prison,
Yep.
right? An OxyContin 80, for perspective, in prison is about $350.
Oh my God.
It to escape the reality that you're in not only costs a fortune, but keep in mind that any legitimate money that you happen to make in prison runs to the 40 cents an hour. So it is just an absolute recipe for disaster. One of the first things that they tell you when you get into prison, they give you a speech, and the speech goes something like this: gambling, drugs, gangs. Those are the three things that you need to avoid if you do not want to get into a train wreck in prison, right? Don't want to join prison gangs because they're going to order you to do things that you don't want to do. Don't gamble because obviously, the time comes that you have to pay, and that, presents a real problem. Unfortunately, those three things are huge distractions. And the reason it's such a tough place to plant a seed is because everyone is looking for a distraction. Everyone is looking for something to take their mind off of the reality of where they are. And believe it or not, even the gang stuff, they create drama, they create violence, and they create beefs so that there is something to talk about and plan for and do all day long. My suggestion would be, there's a parable from the Bible. I don't necessarily want to shove it down anyone's throat, but you just continue to throw seed, is what happens. And some of it is going to land on rock and, ain't going to take root. And that's just the nature of, trust me, from myself and from my bobbleheaded partner, we throw a lot of seed on rock,
Oh yeah.
And sometimes we drive hundreds of miles and spend money and do all kinds of things to throw seed on rock. But boy, for the times that stuff hits dirt, it is one of the most amazing things. It really is a huge, huge thing. I'll tell you something else. I don't know the pain of walking back out of one of those facilities, but I have had so many people who have come to visit me who said, you can't imagine how hard it was to turn around knowing that they were just going to go lock you up. My brother Johnny, right in the very beginning, we had a conversation, and he said, I just don't think I can see you locked up. I just don't think that I can go in there and see that. And I get it. You know what I mean? It didn't hurt my feelings. It didn't, right from the beginning, I said, man, I get that. I really do. Like, I could see where that would probably be one of the most depressing things in the entire world. So I would imagine that the experience of leaving the loved one in that facility and walking away had to be difficult. So, thoughts your way, because that's.
Can I read this? What Daniel just said?
Most assuredly.
He says, because it's really cool. Says even the hardest rocks can be weathered down with enough water.
You know what? I have. How many times have you been somewhere and you see a tree growing out of the side of what looks like a slate or granite, face of a stone? You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And the key is just continuing that process, no matter how difficult or no matter how painful. You just keep throwing seeds, and it's it's not an easy thing under the best of circumstances. If you're in the free world and you're absolutely ready, and all of the stars are in perfect alignment, this is a really hard process. You know what I mean? Let's say you've got a good job, you're making good money, you've got a great marriage. You have very few things that you're really trying to escape. It's still very difficult to put drugs in the rearview mirror. If, you're locked up and, you've got all of these things that you really would just like to forget, then obviously the process is considerably more difficult. But I don't know, it goes along with the Deuce 7 offsuit that we've got put up there today. It really does. The good news is that we're now saving 15 out of 100. And that is for, by the way, the worst statistics out there, right? The success rate for alcohol or cocaine or methamphetamine, they're all better than that, right? That is the worst of all of the success rates The recidivism rate is highest among opiates, I think, probably because of the physical, the physical withdrawal on top of everything else. That sickness. There's something just very difficult about being really, really sick and knowing you can make it stop. Most people have had, a 24-hour bug or a food poisoning or any of those things where, for 3 to 5 days, you just feel like you're going to die and it's the worst thing in the whole world. It is a very, very different feeling when you know you can make it stop like this and go from feeling like that to feeling excellent. It's difficult to talk yourself into, nah, I'm just going to stick this out. And the longer that you're in it, found your show from Louisiana. I assume Louisiana is a person, but I'm a big fan of the state. I think I've said this many times on the show. New Orleans is one of my absolute favorite places on planet Earth. Absolutely love New Orleans. By the way, I got to bring up something from yesterday's show because, and I'm glad that I remembered this. New Orleans actually made me think of it, so thank you. But I had a very odd email from someone that said they were talking about rock concerts, and they said one of the saddest things is that these days they can't enjoy a show. That they used to go and go to rock concerts, but the biggest part of the concert was them getting wasted and doing drugs and all of that. And now to go to a rock concert sober, is just not the same. And here's my thing. Like, I don't get that. I really don't at all. I have gone to many, many concerts since getting sober. I think you got to ask yourself what the hell you were doing at the concert in the first place. If you really dig the music, if you enjoy the music, concerts can be amazing sober. They really can. I mean, it's an amazing experience to go and watch, that kind of a performance where you can actually, sort of pay attention and be in the moment, as opposed to just, sort of being wasted and having everything around you, a blur. There's for those of you who are a little older, there was a really great blues musician named Stevie Ray Vaughan. And I think I said this on the show before, but I had the honor and the pleasure of seeing Stevie Ray in concert multiple times.
Way.
And
I'm jealous now.
Yeah. I actually saw three. It was either 3 or 4 shows. Saw him once at Austin City Limits, which is probably the greatest place in the world to see a show.
Yeah,
because it's just very small and very intimate. But and you don't hear people say things like this very often, but and maybe it's because we're usually wasted at concerts or whatever. But I saw a show that Stevie did that was awful. True story. It was awful. He was falling down drunk. I mean, he was just wasted. And he probably spent about 45 minutes tuning his guitar. And then when he finally started to play, he said, he walked up to the microphone and said, "I'm not in the effing mood to sing this evening. I guess you'll just have to hear me play the guitar." Now, here's the thing. Hearing Stevie Ray Vaughan play the guitar should be, well and good. Like I thought to myself when he said it, awesome. You know what I mean? I'm fine with that. Just jam for a couple hours. Unfortunately, he wasn't very good. His fingers weren't doing what he wanted them to do, and he knew it and had become very frustrated and cursed a lot. And the last time that I saw SRV, he came out and he made a little speech in the beginning where he apologized and said, a lot of the concerts that I did in the past were awful. He said, I was always drinking so hard. And he said what his sobriety date was. And he talked about how long, but he said, I can't tell you how much more fun these shows are for me. And he put on a concert sober that is just one of those experiences that I am so glad I was there for, and I wish I had been sober for that concert. I remember a lot of it, but I think it would have been a far cooler experience had I been sober. But having a chance to see him completely obliterated and having a chance to see him in his best form, he was awesome. And, so oftentimes, when we're in the moment, we truthfully believe that drugs or alcohol makes us better at what we do. This is something that, I was never a rock star, but I used to spend quite a bit of time on stage. And you would go and you do these, public speaking things. And I was on the road doing this pretty much nonstop. And I used to say routinely that, one of the reasons that I always did dope before I went on stage is because I was so much better. It really relaxed me and this and that. And then it was probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years after the last time that I had been on stage, I found a clip on YouTube of a show that I had done. And it was depressing. I mean, to watch it, it was one of those things that to see, especially to watch yourself sober and realizing you're wasted. It's so I also wrestle with this in photos. I look at pictures and go, "Oh God, look at me." You know what I mean? Where it's so obvious, from the photos that I was just obliterated. In fact, I'll make you a promise. I got a couple of pictures that I will dig out. Um, yeah, I'll dig out a few pictures and I'll show you some that just to this day, if I ever start thinking about how, people didn't know or, I was pulling the wool over anybody's eyes. I'll show you just a couple of these pictures where you'll look at them and go, good Lord, that's Tommy. We really do tend to build this like a cocoon of bull stuff around us where we really do convince ourselves. Mark always talks about it, that we always believe that we got the doctor snowed, you got your wife snowed, you got all of these people snowed, and you get sober, and to this day it happens to me fairly routinely where I'll run into somebody that I haven't seen since before prison, and they'll look at me and go, good God, look at you. It's one of those things. It's not like I dressed like a Skid Row bum when I was doing dope. I bet my appearance, as far as my sartorial splendor, I was still wearing the same clothing. It's just I was different.
It's kind of like this, guys. When I had my weight loss surgery, it's the same exact thing. You don't see somebody for months or years, and then you walk up on them and you don't even listen to this. I walked into my aunt's place of business. Hadn't seen her for like 6 months. Stood, had a 5-minute conversation with her, and she still didn't know who I was. Not even kidding. That's how much the transformation can happen. And
That's crazy.
And we showed those pictures, about last week, 2 weeks ago, of the before and after of addicts, guys. I mean, it really is amazing what can be changed. Just applied the right way.
Blue says, I have social anxiety disorder. Concerts would be too much for me. You know what? Am I frozen?
No.
I hear that a lot. I think we may have frozen.
Nope.
I don't know if you people can hear me, but I will continue to talk. Maybe I paused myself. That could be it.
You're good, man.
That's probably
you're good.
I hear, I'm an idiot. People, I hear this a lot. And you know what? There are, for some people, it may not be an option, but there are also people who I think a great deal of when you start to transform, some of those things fall away. I'm not suggesting that you run out to a rock concert, but I wouldn't shut myself off from maybe going out to an event that's got 40, 50 people there and see how it feels. Because I've heard from multiple people in the past who just were terrified and sort of almost crippled by the fear of being in public, and used drugs and alcohol as a way to. My first wife was this way. Really, really intelligent girl. She was a genetic engineer, but to be around more than 3 or 4 people, she had to be obliterated. The amount of booze that she would drink so that she would feel like she could be in social situations. And I don't know, maybe a year ago, year and a half ago, also on YouTube, I came across a video of my ex-wife doing a presentation for, I don't know, 150 scientists, where she was explaining something. She was actually wrote a paper that got published or whatever, but had to get up in front of a crowd of people and do this. And I remember thinking to myself, how awesome is that? And the crowd I know had no clue, but because I was married to this woman for 14 years, to look at her, I knew that when she walked out and they introduced her, she was in hell. The first 5 or 6 minutes that she was out there, I just really know this woman very well, and she was in hell, and it was difficult to watch. And I know if anyone else was watching it, they probably wouldn't have seen it, but it was really hard. And right around the time I was like, man, I can't watch this anymore, and was getting ready to turn it off, I could literally sort of see the transformation where she was kind of getting into her own. Public speakers in general, people that get up in front of crowds of people and talk as a way to make a living, will tell you, and I can attest to this, that the first, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, depending on how often you do it or how long you've been doing it, the first couple of minutes are hard. Even if I was at one time in my life, I was probably doing 8 or 9 shows a week. And even when you're that accustomed to it, the first couple of minutes, are really uncomfortable. It takes a minute for you to sort of break through that. One of the reasons that 99 out of 100 public speakers say something funny when they first get on stage is if they can get the crowd to react. That laugh usually puts the speaker at ease. It's not about the crowd, it's about the speaker. So, that's one of those, tricks that you see. But for everybody, it's tough in the beginning. But do not give up the social anxiety. And for the love of God, don't give up the cowbell.
Yeah.
See that? I was out of the side of my eye. I got
you see that? I did that for Cemetery. He was, yeah. Anyway, he's seen it.
Cemetery could use a little more cowbell.
Yeah, that's what he said. I could use some cowbell. I popped it up there for a second. It was awesome. Awesome stuff.
You can't go wrong.
This whole, the whole drug thing itself and alcohol, it's there's certain, I really don't even want to use demographic on this word, because it's really not about that for me. It's like your social status in the hierarchy of what people look at from the outside, like stars versus somebody like me and you or anything like that. I didn't know, and this is how crazy this is, because I never even thought about it. That now I'm drawing a blank on his name. Married to Nicole Kidman, country singer.
Tom Cruise.
No, country singer.
Urban.
Yep, Keith Urban. I even seen him in concert, by the way.
All right.
Yeah, he fought an addiction. I didn't know that.
I did not know that either.
Yeah, and he spilled the beans like here just about, I don't know, 6 months ago or something like that.
Awesome.
But yeah, he's beaten it. I mean, I think he beat it so far, so he's doing good. But I bring that up because it's just another example. It doesn't matter what genre you're in. It just doesn't. Whatever demographic you're in, it can get you. And I would even say those people that have all that money and around that lifestyle, it might be just a touch more easier to get into something like that. But that's just me. But
the guys that perform in any way, because of the fact that getting up in front of a crowd of people is uncomfortable for most people, it pays well.
Oh, yeah.
The more entertaining that you are, the more it pays. So public speakers make this much, rock stars make this much, right? Actors make even more in some cases. But there ends up being sycophants and people who just sort of gather around those places,
kind of like groupies, right? I mean,
and either sell or give. Everybody wants to ingratiate themselves into those people's lives, and I think that there's definitely an added pressure. It's also, if you think about the lifestyle that those guys lead, when you start your job at 9 o'clock at night, right? And it is adrenaline central until 11:30 or 12 o'clock at night. Nothing but adrenaline and really loud noise and everything else. I think sometimes people take this for granted, but when the lights go off and the person walks off stage, you don't walk off stage and go, "Oh, I'm killed." I mean, you walk off stage and you're like this for another 6 hours. And very oftentimes it takes a lot of one substance or another for those people to to
Yeah.
calm down, get to sleep, which usually happens at about 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning,
Doesn't that start
right?
like a cycle though? When it does that,
It
like
starts the worst cycle in the entire world.
up
It
and
really
down,
does.
up and down. Yeah.
Yeah, I did this for the longest period of time. And then what happens is, even if, if you're using heroin as a way to try to get to sleep, and you wake up at 2 o'clock, or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you got to go on stage at 9. When you wake up at 2, you're worthless. So you need just a little something stronger than coffee, and that begins that cycle. And you need a little something to wake you up. But then as you get closer to getting on stage, you're like, I look wired, don't I? I need to take a little more of this. And it starts this whole process of honestly, it is the least healthy lifestyle in the entire world. I think even for people that kind of have it under control. I know I've told this story on the show before, but I can't tell you the number of times that I used to roll over in a hotel room and pick the phone up and dial 0 and say, I know this is going to sound really stupid, but what city and state am I in? No joke. Because you would just, that I didn't have to worry about, I didn't book airline tickets. I
You just
didn't,
got on the ride, didn't you?
right. We didn't do any of that. So you showed up at the airport, you handed them your ID, and you flew so often that, they have these clubs, right, for people that fly a ton. So when you walk in, you don't have to hang out at the airport. It's like a little private bar for, the platinum elite, members who got 2 million frequent flyer miles or whatever the case may be. And you would go and hang out in there where they got a ton of screens and it's free booze. And then you would just get on the plane and get wherever you're going. And as soon as you land, there'd be a guy holding a sign, right? You'd get into the van and you'd go. And, after 3 or 4 weeks, on the road where, we would fly 3 times a week. So I know this is going to sound dumb, right? But
Wow.
you start forgetting what city you're in, and it was not there. I don't have a ton of fond memories from
I bet not.
from that period of
That's-
time in my
that's
life. It
Probably
was
just kind of forget it, didn't you? Like just kind of
yeah.
foggy.
Honestly, like when it for the longest period of time, it was kind of a fallback. Like when I got out of prison the last time, I wasn't allowed to do any public speaking because it required going on the road. And one of the companies that I used to work for were in Nevada, and I got a phone call, and the guy said, "We had somebody flake. Would you like to go on stage?" And I said, "I can't leave the state. We went through this." And he's like, "No, we're in Nevada." So I called my probation officer, and he's like, "Look, if you don't leave the state, and you do a 1 week, and it's low end $15,000. If you have a really good week, it could be 30." And I remember sending the check because you had to take a picture of it. And I sent it to my PO, and he was like, "What the hell is this?" And I was like, the paycheck. And he was like, "Oh, look, you can go on the road. You'll have to take drug tests for whatever city you go in." And fortunately, the woman that I was with at the time was like, "The hell you are." She's like, "Ain't no way I'm letting that happen." Because at that point, when I was still sober, I hadn't relapsed yet. And she's like, "There's no way, I'm going to let you go on the road. I don't see you staying sober if you do that." And as it turns out, I didn't stay sober for much longer after
anyway,
that. But
it's wouldn't you
really
think wouldn't you think like truck drivers and stuff would kind of fight the same kind of thing?
Yeah, except the if I have a bad night, I'm not going to kill anybody.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I think
Right.
the pressure that those guys are under is something that I really have a hard time wrapping my brain around. You know what I mean? Like you're staying up for 12 hours or whatever, and you're driving enough weight around to really do some fairly serious damage. And in some cases, these are chemicals or, I think that those guys live a pretty tough lifestyle, and without them, right, there's nothing, right?
Yeah.
Literally nothing. Every single thing that happens in this country happens because of those guys.
They've even put laws into place trying to curb all that, and putting governors on their trucks and all that kind of stuff. And I get the governor thing does not go too fast, but
yeah,
it's just, those guys are under a lot of pressure, man, to get that.
No
stuff.
question. Unsung heroes, to be sure.
For sure.
Today there was a guy from the Dallas Cowboys that was just found dead in the Barber. What was his forgetting his first name, but died at a very, very young age. And there's some speculation. I'm really hoping that it's not yet another,
OD.
drug overdose. But
Yeah.
those guys in the, in professional sports, a lot of them are in so much pain that, they end up with a lot of pain medication that gets bought on the street, and I
Well,
fear,
well,
but
Daniel kind of said it earlier. I didn't post it up there, but he said, and it's a good point, that it's so at the ready. It's there.
say that one more time.
He said it's so at the ready. It's there all the
Oh
time.
yeah,
So it's easy to come by. It's already there. People around you are doing it and all that. But yeah, yeah,
Marion Barber.
yeah. Marion Barber. That's what
There you go. 357. Thank you. I saw an interview once with Lawrence Taylor, the played inside linebacker for the New York Giants, won a couple Super Bowls, and I saw him interviewed, and he said, he said in my entire youth growing up, I don't think my family had $5,000 my entire youth. He said, and you become an NFL player. He said, and at any given time, you got $20,000 in your pocket. And he said, you get a Ferrari, because you think you always wanted a Ferrari, and then you get a really expensive watch, and you get a really expensive house, and you get really expensive clothing. He said, and then you think, hell, I'll try a little cocaine. And he ended up getting busted for it. And it's, yeah, I think the availability of it, and the fact that there's it seems to them almost that there's no consequence. Most individuals need to think about things like money, um,
yeah.
and all the different consequences that the average person needs to worry about. Stars don't. They're Marion Barber. Was that Tiki Barber's brother? No.
Don't think so. It could have been.
They would have been older.
I think they're
now,
older.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had Tiki and Ronde. That was Ronde.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, Ronde Barber.
Thank you. Yeah, I knew there was some twins. Marion,
But
was
there was
a
a
different Barber.
back in 2017. I don't know if you guys remember this. Um, there was a Dallas Cowboy player that went completely nuts. As far as he was high on, I'm not sure exactly the drug, but I think it had something to do with bath salts at the time. He killed his girlfriend. I think I brought this up here before, but he killed his girlfriend at home, and he was so out of his mind, he was walking down the street naked, eating her liver.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So if you guys think that anybody listening that isn't in the chat and kind of a first time here, it doesn't have to be opiates. It can be.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just saying, because that we kind of get branded that because that's what me and you had went through. But
yeah.
we talk about all of it. But that was one of the stories that I'm a Cowboys fan, and it stuck with me, man. I think he was on the practice team or something, but it
Good
was
Lord.
literally.
Yeah.
I
know that we've talked about pulling some videos, people. Mark and I have been kicking this around for a long time, and pulling some videos up that and showing some stuff. I think at some point I'd probably like to show some videos of some of what these
real overdose
designer drugs, for lack of a better way to put it, these analog stuff. Were for a long time they got the nickname bath salt because that's how they were sold, literally. You were supposedly dropping this into your bath water, and
that's how they got around the law. Yeah.
So they called them bath salts. Yeah, it was how they got around. But I remember when the bath salt thing was still legal, and they hadn't made any of these analogs or any of these precursors illegal yet. There was one for every single substance out there. Like they had a synthetic cannabis, and they had a synthetic cocaine, and they had a synthetic heroin, and all of these things. Trouble is, once again, zero, and I mean zero kind of quality control. You would have people that it became very, very popular in here in Nevada. For a long time, people were trying to get the meth form of bath salts instead of meth because of the bang for the buck was just considerably, better according to most people. And when you talk to people, I knew a ton of people that did it, and they would just say, "Oh yeah, it's just like meth, just a little bit stronger." But about once every month or two, there would be 4 or 5 people that would just go, bat excrement crazy on the stuff, and do, some of the most bizarre and crazy things.
100, man.
Much more like,
Yeah,
like PCP than anything else.
yeah,
I
Canadian.
tried Coke just once when I was 20. It turned into a 2 week binge. After that, it was all shaky, and I realized real quick why it's so attractive. Never touched it since. Good for you, Daniel.
Yeah,
Not an easy thing. I mean,
it's not.
if you a good 2 week runner on that for a lot of people can turn into a lifetime. Yeah, by way of full disclosure, um, I abused a lot of cocaine over the years.
I think all of us that were in that life at all, I think at some point you become open to anything. It's just we have our preference. That's why they ask you when you go into treatment, what was your drug of choice? Because it was a choice. You had all these drugs in front of you, and that's the one you like the most, and it kind of gets labeled that way. But at the same
Right.
time, I think that that's also one of the biggest reasons why codependency comes into play, because there are so many things there all the time, and you tell your significant other, "Hey, I quit doing the opiates," but then you never say, "Well, I picked up the meth pipe." You know, you start all these kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
And there's things that happen to people too, guys, and anybody that doesn't know much about the physical part of all this, like tweaking. That's not overdosing.
No.
Tweaking is different, guys. Okay, I want to. And people confuse that. These, when you're tweaking, you're kind of out of your mind.
Hyper focused.
Yeah, extremely hyper focused, we'll probably show you a video at some point. There was a guy that I seen, and this is actually a pretty popular video, but he actually recorded himself for the reason that when he passed, that people could see what not to do, and he literally did that, and he was rubbing his face and saying that he was what was he saying? He kept rubbing the same. He was giving himself a facelift. Look, my wrinkles are going away, and he kept doing it. He said, "Look, that's not blood on the end of my fingers. That's staph coming out of my fingers, staph infection." This is what he had himself believing because of what he was doing, and it was sad. It was extremely sad. I get emotional over stuff like that, but it just yeah, so there is a difference there, and so when we hear numbers like 15%, that's a big thing. That's a big number when you look at the whole amount of people that are actually addicted. It's a big number, guys. It really truly is, and that's a positive thing. And that's what we're trying to point out tonight. I think is the fact that we can't always, like Tommy said earlier, if this doesn't at least somewhat show you guys that we're not here to try to get subscribers and views. Yes, that's nice. That's how we gauge ourselves. There's really the only
Sure.
way you can, the growth of your channel. But at the end of the day, if this all dwindled back down to 10 people, we'd probably still be here.
Still be doing an hour a
And
night.
yep.
There's no question.
So I just wanted
The
to point that out.
Nah, and I think it's a legit point. And as to the tweaking thing, people, there's a reason that amphetamines are used um, as a treatment for attention deficit disorder, right? If you think of what attention deficit disorder is, right? Just take the actual words and break it down, right? It's a deficit. It's the inability to focus on one thing, and they in a controlled way raise the level of concentration by using amphetamines. And it's bizarre. If you ever see somebody that really has it, like viciously has it, I knew a girl in Houston who had ADHD as bad as she had adult ADHD as bad as anyone you've ever seen. And if she took too much of the amphetamine, she'd go to sleep. I
Yeah.
mean, literally, it would knock her out. But at the time, I used to drive to Mexico and bring drugs back to sell. And one of the drugs I would bring back was Valium. And I would bring back just, they would come in 90, 10 milligram pills, 90 to a bottle. And I would bring back hundreds of bottles. And she would always want to trade her Dizoxin, which was the amphetamine that they gave her. She would want to swap it out for Valium. Now that girl would take a Valium and bounce off the walls. Like it had the exact opposite effect on her that it would have on somebody else. But it allows people to focus in, right? That's what the amphetamine does. Well, if you take too much of it, your ability to focus on one thing becomes the inability to focus on anything else. And if you've ever seen someone who, who's in the process of tweaking, oh,
That wasn't my daughter. That was my son.
well, still, you still
Hey,
get an eye out of
that's
that.
right. That's right. That's right.
The If you've ever seen somebody in the process of tweaking, and I know I've told this story before, but there was a girl here in town I knew really well who she used to compete for the swimsuit competitions. She was a Miss Hawaiian Tropic, and she would get fixated that there was a blemish on the cheek. And the process of squeezing a pimple or a blackhead or whatever, she would spend 6 hours in a mirror. And I mean, you could go in and literally like bear hug her to try to keep her arms away from her face and say, look, you have no idea the damage that you're doing. Like, you got to stop doing this. And she basically got convinced, and you'll hear this. This is something that is a recurring theme. They will say that the meth begins to recrystallize, and they basically believe that the meth is in the skin. And they try digging it out, and they just keep digging and digging, and they'll go, look, and you'll be like, there is nothing. There's nothing there. You're looking at, pieces of skin. But the last time that I saw her, she just had, they look like sideburns, but they're just two purple scars. And this girl was breathtakingly attractive at one time. Breathtakingly attractive. And she just, absolutely destroyed herself.
Well, yeah. And I think that, here I'll do this real quick because I think I can show everybody exactly what you're talking about here. Pretty quick, like, let's just do that. And yeah, that's what we're talking about. Yeah, there's just no words for that, to be honest with you. So, yeah. That's what people do when they're hyper focused, guys. They see those pimples, and there is what it looks like.
It's truthfully terrifying.
Yeah,
it really is. It's truthfully terrifying.
And and some people do that even without the drugs. Believe it or not, there's actually disorders like
there
that.
are absolutely disorders.
Yeah, and again, guys, we're not here trying to say, hey, if you do this, you're going to look like this. No, everybody's different, but at the same time, we have to understand that this is a possibility, and that is, in my opinion, what you're looking at there is kind of worst case scenario. I get it, but it's, when I say worst case scenario, I don't mean the amount, because the amount of people that look like that do these drugs is staggering, right? But that is pretty bad.
Joanna W says, show him before. Truthfully, that is the before.
That's the before.
That is the before.
So I can try to find the after.
Pull up the after for you, Joanna, but that is actually the before. Yeah, that's the good news of this one.
Yeah.
This is actually a pretty cool story because that was actually the before, and this man is a success story and a good one. A really very cool story. But that is the before, not the after. And we tend to prefer those before and after shots as opposed to seeing someone who has destroyed themselves. We're usually happier to see somebody that has pulled themselves out of the fire.
I think I found it. Give me 1 second and I'll put it on the screen.
Community is the best way to have the support to keep yourself away from stuff like that. Daniel, no question. And it has been time tested and proven by minds far smarter than my bobbleheaded partner or myself that bringing together people who have similar problems, whether they're in the life, in the process of getting out of the life, and we've talked about this so many times on the show, but the problem with, the reason that this works so well and the problem that nothing else seems to is if you try to explain to somebody that has never been in the life, if you try to explain to them anything, the questions you always get are, well, why don't you just stop? Right?
Yep.
What if you've already gotten clean, why would you ever start again? There are questions that make no sense to them, that you'll spend your entire conversation trying to make them understand the unexplainable.
Yep.
And when you get around other addicts and you say, I was clean for 6 weeks and I relapsed. Nobody goes, well, why would you have started again? Because we all understand, the drive that makes us do things that we know are not good for us. It's the reason, and it's not just drug addiction, right? If you're going through virtually any, and I mean any kind of trauma, right? If you're a survivor of domestic violence, or you're a survivor of anything, the idea is to always get you around people who have been through the same thing, because you don't have to go through that process of trying to explain the unexplainable. You can just start talking about, moving forward and what it takes. And being around people who understand you is one of the most comforting things in the entire world. There's a reason we gravitate toward, towards those people who are like us, people that are similar to us.
But that picture,
isn't that a
right
great
there,
picture? Do you not love that?
I mean, it brings so much hope. It really does. I mean, just the picture
look
itself.
At that cat.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that cat. That is the after picture, people. That is the to go from that to from that person to that is just one of the coolest things in the world.
Yeah, Jeff, that's a good point, Jeffrey. So it is just a reminder that that success doesn't happen overnight. It's what you do consistently every day. You may not see results right away, but it will grow exponentially. That's the same as it's a great point, because we are literally healing our brain. That's exactly what's going on. So your body doesn't heal overnight, and and again, part of healing the brain is learning new habits. I won't say habits, but new routines, things like that.
Yeah, habits works too. You're good.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, though. Whereas it might take you a year, it might take you 10 years, it might take you 20 years. And he's right. Of consistently doing the right thing day in, day out. That's how change happens. Make no mistake, right? The decision takes a split second.
Yes.
Right? The decision to become that new creature takes a split second. It's not going to happen overnight by any stretch. But the decision, that's it. I'm drawing a line in the sand. Once that decision is made.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Major makes a good point there too. Nice thing. The thing is, it's nice to be nice. People are here to listen. That's why they're here. We're all in the same basket. I guess that's kind of what being said. Boat. We want the same thing. Cat in a basket. So,
right?
Yeah. And
a little more cowbell and some cat in a basket.
Yeah, exactly.
Tristan, great to have you here, my brother. Semper Fi. Thank you for your service. And we're proud of you, man. I don't think you have any idea just how proud.
And thank you from me, too.
Perfect timing, too, because the decision to change your life can be made like that. 3 days. Hell of a start.
Yes.
Hell of a start. Wow. All righty, people. We're at the top of the hour. And that means we will be back 23 hours from now doing the same thing right here. That's what we do, right? Between now and then, reach out and try to save somebody, people. Please, right? And we're doing a little better, statistically speaking, on saving people. So it's worth the try. I am Captain Tommy Scoville, and on the other side of the glass,
Mark Wages.
And that, people, is a cat in a basket. Good night, everybody. We love you.